Друзья, перед просмотром видео поддержите лайком и подпиской на канал.
Послушайте, у каждого есть хотя бы одна история, которую нужно забыть, но ты помнишь. Если бы кто-то мне тогда сказал, во что все выльется, я бы сильно удивился и начистил ему морду. Было лето и суббота. Утром я отвез свою сильно беременную жену в стационар. Ничего серьезного. Маринке нужно полежать 3 дня в отдельной палате, поделать анализы, проверить, как идет процесс. Вслед за нами подъехала ее мама. Мы с тещей осмотрели палату, надавали много бесполезных советов и ушли. Стоя у своей машины, она спросила: «Андрей, чем ты питаться будешь?» «Разберусь, с голоду не умру», – неопределенно ответил я. «Давай я сейчас к вам подъеду, наготовлю по-быстрому. А то за 3 дня у тебя пирамида коробок от пиццы вырастет». Мама Марины – идеальная теща. Живет в другом районе, приезжает нечасто и ненадолго, в наши дела не вмешивается. Да и слово это ей не к лицу, теща. Это же персонаж для анекдотов, вечно недовольная стерва, что мешает жить. Валентина Валентиновна этой должности никак не соответствовала. На нашей первой встрече она сразу освободила меня от обязанности называть ее по имени-отчеству. «У меня будет ощущение, что я твой классный руководитель. Можно просто Валентина», – с обезоруживающей улыбкой сказала она. Маринка улыбалась по-другому, проще. Наверное, в отца. Мы сели каждый в свое авто и поехали к нам домой. Через час я уже вовсю решал какую-то форс-мажорную мелочь по работе, а Валентина царствовала на кухне, сражаясь с мясом. Сегодня мы с Пашкой едем на вечернюю рыбалку. Без этого уже нельзя. Рыбалка – это славянская медитация. Когда тебе под 30, ты уже уверенно вошел в колею, превращающую легкомысленного юношу в гужевой транспорт, который принято называть мужчиной. Твой карьерный лифт застрял между этажами, ты по яйца в ипотеке, жена четко по плану на 8-м месяце. Тут уж без рыбалки никак. Я покончил с работой и позвонил Паше. Паша начал блеять что-то невнятное. «Извини, Андрюха, забыл, накладка получилась. Я еще раньше обещал Ксюше сегодня с ней по магазинам прошвырнуться. Шторы выбрать и там всякий домашний реквизит». Я и обалдел тогда. Что, кто это? Я ошибся номером. «Паша, вылезай из-под каблука. У меня вон жена скоро рожает, а я еду». Паша помолчал немного, оценивая мой довод, и сказал: «Андрей, если бы ты скоро рожал, ты бы не ехал. Мне, думаешь, весело целый день глубоко в шопе торчать? Я там точно рожу. Ну что уже делать, я ей слово дал. Правда, потом забыл. Давай в следующую субботу. Я точно буду, зуб мудрости даю. Я там точно рожу. Ну что уже делать, я ей слово дал. Правда, потом забыл. Давай в следующую субботу. Я точно буду, зуб мудрости даю. Ладно, жертва своего слова и склероза. В субботу как штык». Паша поклялся своим айфоном. На этом экстренное совещание закончилось. Хорошо, что существует платный наемный пруд со всеми удобствами. Снасти, наживка, палатки – все дают. Если бы Паша экипировал себя сам, он бы по рассеянности всегда что-то оставлял дома. Сегодня он оставил дома себя. Черт, мне теперь ехать одному. Я пошел на кухню варить кофе и смиряться с новой реальностью. Что-то пошло не так. Спросила Валентина, глядя на мой озабоченный таблоид. «Да, у нас с Пашей по плану вечерняя рыбалка на 2, а он дезертировал. И что, в дуэт взять некого?» Я мысленно перебрал варианты и отрицательно покачал головой. «Ну тогда, может, возьмешь меня?» Ее вопрос меня удивил и насторожил одновременно. Не доверяет. Или доверяет, но проверяет. «А вы любите рыбалку?» Никогда не была, даже не подглядывала. Надо же когда-то узнать тайну главной соперницы. «Тайну кого?» – переспросил я. «Рыбалки вашей. Мужчины из нас чаще выбирают ее. Андрей, я сейчас мясо из духовки достану, и вуаля. Мы свободны». Валентина любит готовить и делает это хорошо. Наверное, потому, что любит. Она 45-ка, только на входе в сезон бабьего лета. Но ничего бабского в ней нет. Наоборот, изящная, элегантная дама с манерами и кругозором. В юности Валентина много занималась танцами и трудилась хореографом до сих пор. Мы выехали на ее машине. У нее был подержанный Пежо, такой же подвижный и ухоженный, как его хозяйка. Со своим мужем, отцом Марины, она познакомилась в студенческие годы. Виктор Николаевич был старше ее лет на 5-6. Они прожили вместе почти четверть века, черт, немногим меньше, чем я вообще живу. За это время Виктор Николаевич из аспиранта превратился в профессора, как пешка превращается в ферзя, лавируя среди коней и слонов научного сообщества. Он преподает в университете повышенной престижности, не страдает чувством юмора, очень любит свою работу и постоянно на ней пропадает. К пруду мы приехали быстро, часам к 3. С собой я взял несколько бутылок пива для дневной подготовки и 1 бутылку виски для вечера. Проверенная алкогольная программа. Было жарко, я оголил торс и остался в одних штанах. Валентина подкатала майку и соорудила на себе этакий топик. Подтянутый чуть выпуклый женский животик она подставила солнцу. Если большинству ее сверстниц было что прятать, то ей было что показать. Никакого лишнего жира, талия уверенно присутствовала. А она еще очень даже очень. Я не раз задумывался, есть ли жизнь после 40. И вот увидел, что есть. Это воодушевляло. В конце концов, настоящее вино с годами становится лучше, а правильный зеленый чай вкуснее только со 2-й заварки. Я сходил к машине за пивом и водой. Возвращаясь глупым маршрутом сквозь кусты, я до крови расцарапал спину. Валентина открыла бутылку с негазированной водой, промыла царапины и смазала их йодом из автомобильной аптечки. По классике, йод должен был подпекать. Но Валентина прикасалась ко мне с такой бережностью и осторожностью, что ее забота победила. Мне было даже приятно. Медицинской сестры здесь нет, будет у тебя медицинская теща. Спасу зятя, может пригодишься, приговаривала моя спасительница. Все причиндалы для рыбалки на 2 я взял на месте. Без излишеств и фанатизма, самое необходимое. Мне нравился сам процесс, а не его технология. Валентина проявляла неподдельный детский интерес к разным мелочам и премудростям древнего мужского занятия. Глаза у нее блестели. Не дать не взять любопытная девчонка, живая и настоящая. Я поймал 2 карасей и 1 карпа. У Валентины клев не шел. Она с азартом наблюдала и радовалась моим успехам. Мужик при счете 3-0 уже удавился бы от зависти в приступе дурацкого мерения одним местом. Вдруг Валентина напряглась, как леска на ее удочке. Я подскочил к ней сзади. Она заметно заволновалась. «Андрюша, а вдруг я не удержу?» Но я одной рукой уже подтягивал добычу к нам. 2-я рука лежала нажимавшей удочку руке Валентины. До меня вдруг дошло, что я стою, вплотную прижавшись к ней сзади всем своим фасадом. Мне стало неловко. Валентина была так увлечена и взволнована, что не разделяла мой конфуз. Неловкость отступила, и я ощутил, что мне нравится прижиматься. Было приятно чувствовать эти выпуклости, прямую в меру мускулистую спину. Не говоря уже о том, что ощущалось ниже. Меня снова накрыло неловкостью. Спасла рыба. Она была на подходе, и через считанные секунды вместо Валентины я прижимал уже ее. Это был окунь среднего роста и, наверное, среднего возраста. Валентина была счастлива, как ребенок, которому подарили собаку. Она даже подпрыгнула на месте пару раз. Окунь тоже пару раз подпрыгнул, но явно не от счастья. Валентина посмотрела на трофей, выделывавший пируэты на брезенте, и вдруг сказала: «Андрей, давай его отпустим». «А зачем тогда ловили?» Удивился я. Ловила, чтобы поймать. Все поймала, можно и отпустить. Это было так по-женски, чувство. Но и мне не мешало, признавая мое право быть мужчиной-добытчиком. Это купило меня с потрохами. Я схватил ее трепыхавшийся улов, и рыба птицей полетела в воду. Напоследок она передала нам несколько благодарных кругов на воде. «Поздравь меня с дебютом. Ты лишил меня рыбацкой невинности», — сказала Валентина. «Значит, теперь я у вас первый. И пока единственный». Мы рассмеялись и присели на карематы. Выпили свой первый предвечерний виски, чокнувшись пластиковыми стаканчиками, и разговорились. Валентина вспоминала какие-то забавные истории из своей танцевальной юности. Мы представляли их в картинках и смеялись. «И вот к нам в студию приходит мальчик», — продолжала Валентина. «Переодевается, заходит в класс. И у него вот такой нечеловеческий гульфик. Девчонки обомлели. Все боятся с ним в пару стать». «Как это?» — усмехнулся я. «К нему, наверное, очередь выстроилась». «Нет, что ты. Страшно же. Интересно и страшно одновременно, но страшно больше». Он так и простоял до конца репетиции, ушел и больше не приходил. Но одна наша девочка, Света, которой было больше интересно, чем страшно, начала с ним встречаться. Как она его нашла? В навигаторе по гульфику. Валентина улыбнулась. Тогда еще не было навигаторов. Он ее с той единственной репетиции домой проводил. Через месяц у них произошло впервые. И выяснилось, что мальчик в штаны подкладывал колбасу. Как он с ней танцевать собирался? Удивился я. Плохому танцору колбаса должна мешать. А он не собирался. Оказалось, мальчик так знакомился, ловил на живца. Ходил по танцевальным студиям по одному разу. В паре не танцевал, но всегда найдутся одна-две Светы, чтобы закружить на время. В общем, охотничья колбаска приносила охотнику дичь, подытожил я. Мы посмеялись и потянули виски. Меня позабавила эта поучительная история, которая могла бы и называться как басня «Конец и Света». Валентину было приятно слушать, смотреть на нее тоже. В себе она умела поддерживать и форму, и содержание. Я обратился к ней по имени, но она сказала: «Сегодня можно просто Валя». Чем больше виски, тем короче имя, чтобы язык не заплетался. Про рыбалку мы давно забыли. Вдруг я спросил: «Валя, у вас с Виктором Николаевичем в этом году серебряная свадьба, да? Кажется, в ноябре». Валя немного изменилась в лице и посмотрела куда-то вдаль. «Нет, Вити». Она будто споткнулась об это имя и чуть прокашлялась. Виктор Николаевич полюбил студентку со своего старшего курса и ушел на съемную квартиру 2 недели назад. Она скоро закончит университет, и они поженятся. Видимо, у него такая традиция – каждые 25 лет жениться на студентке. Уголки ее губ на мгновение приподнялись, провожая это забавное наблюдение. У меня отвисла челюсть. Как так? Такое бывает, Андрюша. Так что свадьбы не будет. Все серебро ударило в бороду, и на серебряную свадьбу не хватило. Валя на секунду зажмурила глаза, заставив слезу отступить. Меня чуть шатнуло. Будто долетело несколько колючих брызг от сварки, которой она пыталась заделать пробоину в сердце. Я не знал, простите. Тебя-то за что прощать? Нет, он хороший человек, умный, любит работу. Но это уже не тот Витя, которого я знала когда-то. Я молча отхлебнул из кружки. Какие же мы, мужчины, предсказуемые существа. У нас очень незатейливая дорожная карта. Сначала влюбляемся в свою первую учительницу. Потом носим портфели одноклассницам. Затем женимся на девушке, которая на несколько лет моложе нас. Дальше заводим любовницу, которая на несколько лет моложе жены. И в конце карьеры уходим от жены к девчонке, которая годится нам в дочери. Это, конечно, не предел. Особо пухлые кошельки в 60+ способны завести одногодку своей внучки. То есть завести ее в привычном мужском смысле это вряд ли, но для красоты, как экзотическую домашнюю зверушку. Хотя при беглом взгляде на их свадебные фотографии сразу понимаешь, кто у кого зверушка. И пусть ты хоть Анджелина Джоли, а твой муж выглядит хуже жопы Брэда Питта, к полтиннику он все равно будет влажно глазеть в сторону студенческих общежитий и свалит при первом удобном случае. Начинало темнеть. Мы по-турецки сидели на карематах, потягивали виски и болтали о том о сём. Валя периодически смеялась, что-то живо рассказывая. Потом что-то рассказывал я, и она снова смеялась. Она была очень живой, чуть раскрасневшейся и какой-то родной, своей. Захотелось курить. Мои сигареты вызывающе валялись прямо за Валей. Я потянулся за ними и, потеряв равновесие, легко оперся рукой на ее бедро. Бутылка с остатками виски, стоявшая между нами, упала от моих телодвижений. Ее дно смотрело прямо на меня, а горлышко показывало на Валю. Я вспомнил свой первый поцелуй. Мы играли в бутылочку, и горлышко показало на Машу Рязанцеву. Так все и случилось. Я вдруг понял, что застыл в этой транзитной позе лицом к лицу с Валей. Ее глаза были закрыты, ее губы были рядом с моими, и я почувствовал горячее дыхание и пьянящий запах ее волос. Телефон никто не брал, он звонил уже второй раз. Это был Паша, у меня на него в телефоне стоит паровозный гудок. Наверное, не терпится узнать, сколько я без него наловил. Эх, Пашка, Пашка, недооценивал я тебя, мой друг. Спасибо, что не поехал. Сидели бы сейчас, тихо накидывались, лягушек слушали. И у меня не было бы этого вечера никогда.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? Is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.